Number 4 on my top 12 favorite Clone Wars episodes. This is an episode from The Lost Missions, and it's an episode that we almost didn't see, but thankfully, due to the convenient timing and persistence of Dave Filoni, not only was this episode fortunately completed when the show was canceled, but we actually got to see it. Now, The Lost Missions was pretty rocky. There were some parts of it that were good, some parts of it that were okay, but there was one part of this The Lost Missions that was really good. It probably, even though I know what other arcs were planned for season 6 and we have gotten to see them, I still think even if those arcs had been complete and finished, this still would have been one of the highlights, if not the best arc in season 6. I'm of course talking about the Yoda arc. Now, I won't spend too much time talking about this since I already talked about all the episodes in this arc in great detail. And if you want my thoughts, you can just read. You can watch my vlogs. So, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but I will say this was a really good arc. Written by one of the most talented writers for the show. Well, not the most talented, but one of the most talented writers. Christian Taylor. He has written some amazing stuff for the Clone Wars, and this is one of his best arcs. It's a really amazing, wonderful arc where Yoda goes on this spiritual journey, and that was a really smart idea to make it a spiritual journey, not Yoda just fighting stuff. Hopefully the Kashyyyk arc wouldn't have been that, but I digress. So, a lot of cool locations, Dagobah, some really cool Force World, and fucking Korriban. And, oh my gosh, some amazing stuff. But you're probably wondering which episode is my favorite. And that would be the final one, Sacrifice. And it was kind of a real toss-up, because Destiny was a really good episode too. And it might have had the cooler world and everything, but at the same time, and even looking back on it, like Yoda doesn't do as much on Korriban as he did on the Overworld, but I love this arc for various reasons. One, I'm a huge fan of KOTOR. Like, I love that game. I haven't played KOTOR 2, if anyone's wondering, but KOTOR 1, fucking awesome. It's my favorite BioWare game. Great story, great characters, really great universe created in that world. Lots of good world building, memorable characters. I just love that game. So you can only imagine how excited I would be when something from KOTOR makes its way into the Clone Wars, and it looks pretty much the way it does in the show. And I know Clone Wars is the only thing canon right now, but my theory is that, not my theory, I always like to go by, if they ever reference something from the EU, I consider that canon now as well. So, since I doubt they're going to do anything in the Old Republic, since there seems to be this large focus on just telling stories focused around the original trilogy and beyond, I doubt anything will come out contradicting the Old Republic era. So, in fact, all this did was just solidify that KOTOR happened. It canonized Darth Bane, which is pretty cool, because that also canonizes a ton of stuff. The fact that they acknowledged that EU character, which not many people, which is something that hardcore Star Wars fans would know about. I thought that was cool. And he's voiced by Mark Hamill. Like, you got Mark Hamill on the show in the final episode of Clone Wars. That was very fortunate. And all of this ends in a really awesome fight between Yoda and the Emperor, which surpasses the one in the original trilogy. There's actual tension, since this is an illusion where the fates of the characters and what will ultimately happen is a little uncertain. I mean, we know Yoda will come out okay, but it's not as ambiguous as... It's more ambiguous than the fight in Revenge of the Sith, where there's no tension because we know both Yoda and the Emperor are going to come out of this okay. So yeah, awesome fight. Really shows Yoda's character and how he's selfless and how he's willing to choose his friends and sacrifice beating the Emperor, which I'm still debating the ethics of that, because, like, isn't, like, the whole point of a Jedi not to be attached, but I digress. It was an awesome arc, and even if it wasn't the intended ending to Season 6 or the Clone Wars, it was still a really awesome final episode of the show. And there are tons of stories that were planned for the Clone Wars and some of which were unfinished, some of which had to be told through comic books, some of which they were just finishing the scripts for. I'm really glad that when the show ended, when the show was canceled at the end of season 5, that at the very least this gem of an arc was completed. Because it would have been a real shame not to have seen it brought to life the way it was intended to be. The animation, the music, the voice acting, all of it, it's just a wonderful story overall. And it's really fortunate that it was completed when the show was canceled. It would have been a shame not to see it the way it did. And that's pretty much all I have to say on Sacrifice. I've pretty much said, if you want to hear more in depth as to what I thought of this episode, as well as my thoughts on the other episodes in the arc, go check out my Clone Wars vlogs. And stay tuned, because later today I'm probably going to record number 3. And you want to be there for that one, because this is an episode. Not only is it an awesome episode, but it is one of those moments where I am just like, why did you cancel the Clone Wars? Because this next episode showcases probably some of the best writing and storytelling on the show, and they set the bar really high with this episode. Let me just leave it at that. So, until then, this is JStars360, and may the Force be with you.